On today's Ugly Agent podcast, we're going to talk about surviving an IRS audit. So you're definitely going to want to take some notes on this one. Hi, I'm Rich Melton. I'm the host of the Ugly Agent podcast, and today we're going to talk about something that happened to me last year. Actually, it was started in 2016, but it was probably one of the most stressful things that I've ever dealt with, and it's going through an audit. So like I said before, grab a pen and paper, get ready, because here we go. So one of the first things I'll tell you is this started in 2016. For me, I got a letter in it was September of 2016, right? So, and this was for my business from 2014 to 2015. So they were, I've always heard about people who talked about if they get audited, what's going to happen and how they're going to handle it. And one of the funniest stories I hear is, yeah, they're going to audit me and I got a box full of receipts and I'm just going to run in there and I'm going to throw a big box on their desk or dump all the receipts on the desk. And then there you go. You have a great time. You figure it out. Well, that's not the way it really works. So let me just be the first one to tell you, if you do that, then you are probably going to get an adjusted amount that you owe, and they will send you a bill, and you will pay it. One way or another, you will pay it. So as an example, I'm just going to start out from the beginning of this and kind of go down what happened. So about September 2016, I get the notice in the mail that, hey, look, we're getting a certified letter that, you're getting audited. So right away, of course, my wife, God bless her. I mean, she freaks out, oh my God, it's the end of the world. And I can understand where that stress comes from because, this is not anything we had planned. And it's just one of those things when you own a business, or you don't even have to own a business, you can get audited. It's obviously a little easier if you work for someone else and get audited because you're going to be able to show there's a lot less paperwork. I'll just put it that way. So my first recommendation to you is don't freak out and call your accountant. Now, this is one of those times I was extremely excited that I didn't use TurboTax or one of those things like that, because I actually I was in the middle of a whole lot of stuff, right? So at this point, I had just gotten my real estate license, so I'm starting up a real estate company. I've still got my other company going on, and I'm actually working on, I got an extension for our taxes that we're due in April and had not done them. So I was actually starting this company, just finished up the real estate stuff, and actually just working on my taxes that were due in October. So in the process of all this fun stuff, now I've got to finish my taxes because they're due in October, and then have this audit. So the audit, when I first get the paperwork, it says we're going to have an initial meeting in October, and I was, it has the IRS agent to call. After several phone calls, I was finally able to get a hold of that agent and say, hey, can we move this date? Because I'm finishing up my 2016 and I need to get that done before I can provide all this other paperwork. She was nice enough to tell me that was fine, and we moved the date to November. So November 2016 would be the first time I'd go in to meet with them. Now, let me just tell you that this was a full-blown audit. There was no, they wanted to see everything, right? So I got a hold of my, like I said, my accountant, and talked to Tim at Taxes Plus in Shawnee, Kansas. And Tim, I said, hey, we sent him a letter and said, here's what they're looking for. So to kind of give you an idea, 2014 and 2015 was the years they were looking at. And it was all my Schedule C stuff. So it was advertising, cars and truck expenses, other expenses, meals and travel. Now, it doesn't sound terrible until you put together the idea that in 2014, that was $31,000 worth of receipts, right? And most of those receipts are under $100. So if you figure for 2014, $31,000, not to mention my mileage I put about 60,000 miles a year on a vehicle at 58 cents a mile. So it's, it's over $30,000 for that too. So there's $60,000 they're really questioning what I did in 1 year. And then you go to 2015. Well, I was about to say $25,000 in receipts for one, most of them under $100. And then you go to mileage is another same thing, 60,000 miles give or take. 58 cents a mile, whatever it was at that time, I don't remember, but it was about $30,000. So you're talking here 2 years that they are asking me about all this stuff and saying, hey, if you don't provide this information, we'll just bill you. So we'll just send you a bill for $120,000. And, so those people that go, well, I'm just going to throw the box of receipts at them and I'll be done. Did you make enough to pay $120,000? I mean, that's the real question there is, can you justify paying $120,000 just because, oh yeah, it's just cheaper to do that. So obviously I could not do that. I do pretty well, but not that well. So anyway, what ended up happening is, I've got this kind of cheat sheet from my attorney, or my accountant, and he's like, here's what they're looking for, so it's all the different things that go under the Schedule C, the expenses, and he's got them broken down with how the numbers were on the return, so I know what to look for. And which helped tremendously. Again, this is where having an accountant, I think, is beneficial. Now, when I reached out to my accountant, Tim, he's a great guy. I've known him for, well over 15, 20 years almost. I think it's been a long time. He's suffered like a lot of people knowing me that long. So when he sent this over, he's like, hey, this is a full-blown audit, and if you need any help, we're here for you, and we will give you a discounted rate of $120 an hour, which is 40% off our normal audit rate. And I told him I was flattered by that, but he's done my books long enough to know that that's probably out of the realm of possibility. I don't have a lot of that laying around. So you figure that the other thing too that I found out, and this is just from my own experience going through the audit, when you're looking at how all the things they want to know, I'm still going to have to be really involved with everything that goes on with this audit because they're going to not know the answers to the questions. So I still have to be there. So paying somebody to do some of it might be okay, but the majority of it, if you're the business owner, you're going to have to know what's going on. So we go in for my first meeting, right, with my IRS agent, nice lady, met in, and this is in November. And I have this huge, sling bag, like bicycles messenger bag, and it's just full of folders. And I wouldn't say they're manila folders. They're the ones that kind of the accordion ones. And they're broken down by here's a year and a month so that I can show her what's going on in that particular time. And of course, now I have no idea if this is right or not. This is our first meeting and she's going to look over things. And I didn't know this, I'm over here lost. I'm hoping this helps somebody out there so you kind of get an idea of what you're going to come up against. But she ends up, I'm sitting down with her and she's looking at everything and going, and I said, here's all the stuff. She's asking me for it. And she's like, looks like you're off to a good start here. And I had already told her I didn't think I was done. And she's like, it looks like you're off to a good start. And I said, whew, that's lucky. I'm ecstatic about it. And she's like, really? Are you worried? And I said, yeah, look at me. I'm way too pretty to go to prison. Now, when I said that, she looked at me and laughed out loud, and it caught her completely off guard. And which is, I don't know if she was laughing because I looked at me and thought, well, there's no way that guy's pretty or whatever it was. Whatever it was, it kind of broke the ice, broke the tension. And we had a real different relationship after that. I try to be funny and humorous if I can at any time. And so what ended up happening was, I think that it opened up, it humanized her and me, and funny because here's what happened. She laughed out loud, ha ha ha, and then covered her face and caught herself and went, okay, back to I am the IRS agent. So that really helped to kind of break the ice and get some stuff done when, between her and I, so that we would have this kind of a relationship, because this is not a short-term thing. So just so you know, you're going to be in this. You could be in it for a long time, and I'm going to go into that. We finished up mine a lot later than what I would have liked to. But the longer it went on, it seemed like the more I was able to convince them that I was doing business, that I wasn't doing anything illegal, and that I had these legitimate write-offs. So now I'm going to tell you a quick story, and then we're going to take a commercial break. So when I got my first meeting with her, one of the problems I had was I actually had a hard drive completely crash with a lot of my stuff on it from 2014 and 15. I was able to get it digitally recovered, a majority of it, which helped out during this audit. And then I actually, in 2015, bought a server that I back up everything on now. I'd highly recommend, if you haven't done that, go ahead and do it. And I'm going to try to put some links in there to some different stuff on the QNAP and different things that I bought to make my life a little easier and back up my stuff. I'd highly recommend you looking into it. And the other thing that happened that was really bad was my phone. I had an LG G4, and it completely melted down, which lost a majority of all my mileage. And so that's a real problem with the IRS. They didn't care that it melted down. They didn't care I lost it. Now, this was before I realized that it wasn't backing up to the cloud. I realized that after, ironically enough, my phone melted down. So I lost a lot of mileage and had to recreate it. So I will get into that a little bit later, but I want to take a second here, and we're going to take a quick commercial break, and I want to talk to you for a second about concealed carry holsters, specifically the Cover 6 Gear single point swivel system. It is the most versatile holster on the planet. The single belt clip rotates and allows you to wear this holster anywhere on your body you can reach. Left to right-handed, we have models for over 170 different weapons, all handmade by an Amish family in Kansas. You can bet that when you get your Cover 6 Gear single point swivel system holster that you're going to love it. Be sure to go to cover6gear.com, put in the code UGLYAGENTS at checkout. You'll get 10% off your order. It's the most comfortable holster you'll ever wear. If you or someone you know is looking for a good realtor in the Kansas City area, go to richsellsforyou.com. That's Rich Sells, the number 4, and then YOU.com. You'll see I'm not your average agent. Videos, walkthrough presentations of every house, lots and lots of pictures. Whether you're looking for a listing agent or a buyer's agent in Kansas City or the surrounding areas, the safe bet is to go to richsellsforyou.com. When it comes to realtors, there's a new standard for excellence. At the time of this recording, I'm a licensed realtor with Crown Realty in Gardner, Kansas. I want to talk. All right, thank you for allowing me to get that in. So let me get the other stuff ready here. Are you ready to lose 8? So anyway, back to my story. Let me get back to it here. So after the during this whole time, I am now it's November, December time frame. I'm going through the audit. We're actually, and this is probably the most stressful time, because you have to justify everything that you have on this thing as a receipt, as a return. And by the way, you're justifying it, and it was several years ago. So how are you going to do that? So I want to tell you something that really hit home with me, and a good friend of mine, Gary Hozak, he's the owner of Crown Realty. He told me, I told him, I was like, yeah, Gary, I'm sorry, I'm not focused 100%. I appreciate you letting me use the office, and because I've got this audit going on. And he's like, oh, it's not that big a deal, Rich. Once you get through it, you'll be fine. And he says, you know what? Let me tell you a secret. He goes, you know what the IRS wants to hear? They want to hear a good story. They want to hear why you're justifying this and why. And that's really, it was so true, because, and I hope that information resonates with you, because what happens is, when you're going in there, they're going to ask you specific things on every receipt. They're going to say, well, why did you need this? Why did you need that? So, and before I forget, I will tell you that, you see these commercials on TV, or you've seen an ad somewhere where you take a picture of the receipt, right, and throw the receipt away. Don't do that, because the IRS will not accept that as a legitimate receipt. If you run in there with digital copies of everything, that doesn't count. And I'm telling you, a lot of people are going to get in trouble when they get audited and find that out. I had all the physical receipts, and I had mentioned that I had some of these backed up on digital, and that's when they told me the digital ones don't even count. You need the originals. And they don't care if they're faded out. They don't care about anything except for the original receipts. So several of the original receipts I had to get, and they were faded out, but I had them, and you could still see the numbers and still see the details just barely, and you'd have to hold it up to the light, and I would show them, here's the one, and here's how it is, and here's what it says, and they were fine with that as long as it was the original, which it'll be interesting to see what happens when all these digital receipts. Now, I asked them why is it that I can't bring a digital receipt in, and the agent said, hey, well, these could be doctored, so people could go into Photoshop or paint or whatever and doctor them, and we would never know. And I said, well, technically I could do that with the physical receipt too, and you probably wouldn't know that either. And she's like, well, that's true, but this is the rules as of right now. So don't fall into the trap of just taking a picture of your receipt and then throwing away the original. You can do that, but keep the original no matter what. So there were several meetings in between this time from, November time frame to, we have, I think, one in early January, another one in February. And so what's happening is every time I'm having a meeting with her, I'm going in and I'm showing her more documentation, because they're digging a little deeper. They're looking up everything. Most meetings lasted maybe an hour. an hour and a half tops, where we have to go. And basically what I'm doing is I'm justifying. She's looking down this receipt, and she's going, okay, now, here's the thing. So I'm going to tell you a couple quick stories about what happened during a couple of these meetings. So one of them, I've got these receipts spread out around a giant office table, right? So I've got them set up in month. So, because I've got a big accordion file with all these receipts filed in monthly. And I've got to go through now, and I've got to separate them for if there are certain expenses. I kind of wish I'd have done that originally before I filed my taxes, but I didn't. So, lesson learned: if you have the time, go ahead and separate them. But anyway, one of these receipts I noticed when I was going through my numbers was set up as an other expense for like a shop tools or shop supplies or something, right? So one of the things on there, though, it was filed incorrectly. It was actually gift, right? So they're still both write-offs, but what do? And little secret here: anything that you tell the IRS, right, they can go back and fix on their end, right, and make you pay for. If you have a mistake, even if it benefits you, they don't care and they don't give you credit for it. So anything that you go, hey, my accountant told me that we probably shouldn't use my house as an office, even though I use it exclusively as an office and more of an office than a house. Even sometimes we cannot write that off because you're probably going to get audited if you do that. Well, guess what? I'm already getting audited, so why don't I said I can use the house exemption. Oh, no, you didn't take that the first time. You don't get it now. So don't forget, it's always a one-way street with them. They can do whatever. You cannot adjust anything. So one of these receipts, I had pool noodles on, and they were gifts. And I'm thinking, here we go. I'm going to get burned because this pool noodle thing, it's a gift. What can I even say? I mean, if they ask me about that, how am I going to handle this? And I was just kind of fretted over it and couldn't think of anything. And I was just like, well, I'm just going to have to tell them it was a mistake, and I'll get $5 or whatever it was. It was a gift from my Amish friends, right? It's hard to buy Amish people gifts that aren't battery powered. The pool noodles work pretty good. So they take them out swimming and do all kinds of fun stuff with them. So anyway, wouldn't you know it, as soon as I get in there, and I mean, it was like a magnet for her. She flips through, and there's a stack of receipts like this thick, no kidding. And she goes through that, and all of a sudden sees this Walmart receipt, which we're going to talk about those too, and looks down it, and it says pool noodles. Now, we had done a show at the same time I got those pool noodles, where I had to buy a big pop-up 10x10 tent that was outside. And she sees the pop-up tent, she asks about it, and she sees the pool noodles and the bubble machine that's on there too, which is another gift. And says, why are there pool noodles and a bubble machine on here? And I said, oh, that show that we did where I bought the 10x10 tent? Those pool noodles, how the 10x10 pop-up thing has those strings that go down to keep from blowing around? People always trip over those. So we took the pool noodles and ran them through the strings, and then stuck them in the ground. And so that way people would see the strings and not trip over them, right? Because they can see the pool noodles. Now that, right off the top of my head, I had no plans, but, and she's like, that's a really great idea. And she's like, what about the bubble machine? I go, oh, that was there to put outside to make sure that everybody saw where we were, because we were kind of down on the end of the show and it's outside. So we had a bubble machine blowing bubbles. Okay. Wrote it right off. And I'm like, oh my God, Gary Hozak was so right. All they want is a story. They really just want a story. They want to know that you're doing it. Now, it would have been a write-off either way, and I don't feel bad. It's not like I stole anything from them, and it was about $10. But here's the thing. When it comes down to it, they're getting me for everything they can on anything that might be wrong or that they don't know about. I'm going to get everything I can, every chance I get when I get the opportunity. So I don't feel bad about it at all. And I'll just tell you, from now on, if you have one of those pop-up 10x10 tents, right, that pop up and you can do an outside event, get pool noodles and put them on the table on those strings, so that way you can now go ahead and nobody's going to trip over those strings. I mean, it's the best idea I've ever had, and I never even used it yet. So just something to think about. So the mileage problems. So we're back to earlier I mentioned about how I was out and we had an issue with the mileage. And so part of it's gone, so I had to recreate the list. And I had to, when I'm recreating that list, I had to go and look at, okay, where was I and how would I do that? So one of the things I used, and this is going to be something I recommend for you, is this is where keeping a good calendar was key, because I was able to look back on my calendar and recreate some of the mileage that I had done. And I was able to say, you know, I knew I did this and I did this. Now, this was real hard for the IRS because they're like, well, you don't have the where you went. And this is the way they want it. Just so you know, when you're talking about mileage to an IRS agent, they want to know if today is Friday, right? On Friday, I left my house at this time and I drove 12 miles and I went to Susie's house and showed her a property, or I talked to her about her. I went to a store and bought XYZ, and then I drove from there at 10:30 and I went over here and I got there about 11 and that was, I did this there, and then I drove somewhere else and that was 14 miles, and then I made it back to the office, which is 12 miles, and I got back about noon. That's pretty much how they want it. And I told him, I was like, that's unrealistic. I said, if I did that, I wouldn't be doing anything else all day. I'm trying to keep notes on what I'm doing for my job, let alone keep notes on everything I did specifically that day. So what I was able to do was, this is why I always keep all my fuel receipts too. And I'm keeping all these receipts for my business. I hesitate on throwing really anything away. And I've always kept the fuel receipts. So what I was able to do is I brought in the fuel receipts proving that I had driven all these miles because of what I did. And then I was able to say, you know, here with my calendar, you could see all the different things that I had done, and it proved that I had driven that mileage, right? So it wasn't exactly like they wanted it, but I was able to, because I was a nice guy and I didn't run in there and go, you guys are stupid and I hate you and you're just stealing from everybody. I was, you know, we had a nice relationship, and I understand that these people are just there doing a job, right? It's not their fault. They don't write the laws. They just enforce it, which trust me, I think, flat tax or something like that would be a lot easier, because, well, we wouldn't need a lot of those people. I mean, because if it took me 10 minutes to walk in and show, here's how much I made and how much I paid on a flat tax, it'd be a lot easier, but then we wouldn't have nearly as many of those employees, would we? So that is one of the things. I always keep the fuel receipts. I still do, and it benefited me in the long run, because how otherwise I'm going to prove it? And here's the thing. You're like, what's it really going to cost? That was $30,000 of write-off, right? So all of a sudden now, and it's not just the $30,000. I want you to think about this. When the IRS does this, it's $30,000 that you owe them from 2014. And oh, by the way, you've been missing out on interest payments the entire time. So now I've got 3 years worth of interest payments on $30,000, and they're not cheap. They make like those payday loan places look like a deal, let me tell you. So keep those extra fuel receipts, keep them, and that way you can at least prove that between all of the fuel receipts I had and the hotel rooms and everything else, I was able to prove that I drove that many miles. So back to using the calendar, that's a huge plus. If you put the things in your calendar that you're doing all the time, and I try to be as religious as I can about it. Every meeting I have, everywhere we're going, everything I'm doing. So that way I can say, hey, look, and I do my personal stuff in there too, because that way I can show on my personal, in the mileage, I can say, look, I did this, and yes, we did all these things. And so that's why there's 10,000 personal miles that are on there, and the other 60,000 are business. You want to be able to differentiate that, and it's real easy to print out those calendar dates and show them, hey, look, here's why I did what I did. And then the other thing is, when you're looking for receipts, I went through my email, right? And so I'm looking through and I couldn't find a certain receipt, and it's an online purchase or whatever, because I could tell by, really the best way to do this, by the way, is to go get your credit card or your bank statements and then use the PDF, copy and paste into a Excel document, and then you can transfer and remove all the stuff you don't need and then transfer that into a Word document. If you paid your credit card bill, just so you know too, with a if you paid your expenses and just said, hey, here's my credit card bill for $2,800, and that was my business expenses, don't plan on getting any money, because they will not give you credit on that, right? Because all of a sudden they want to see the actual receipt, not the credit card bill that you paid for. So let me go ahead, and we're going to take a quick commercial break here again, and then I'll come back, and we've got a lot more on this IRS audit stuff. It is huge, and you're going to want to know this. You're going to want to be able to share this with your friends and family too if they're in this situation. I wish I'd had somebody to help me. Gary alone helped me just a ton with that little statement, but I'm hoping I can help you and your friends. And by the way, like, share, subscribe, do all that other stuff. Send this out to the people who you know who might be in this situation or could potentially be in this situation. Business owners everywhere need to know this kind of stuff. And I really haven't seen anybody talk about it, which is unfortunate because we need to know, I mean, that these are the kind of things that are going to make our lives a little bit easier. So I'll be right. Are you ready to lose dangerous, unwanted weight, drop inches, and melt away fat fast without dieting? My friend Brio Guerra has a clinically proven system that will have you losing that muffin top, aging backwards, shredding pounds, and gaining lean muscle, all naturally. At less than $3 a meal, you deserve this kind of health and simplicity in your life. In 30 days, you'll get your health back or your money back. They guarantee results. So contact Brio Guerra right now at 816-520-8102. Tell her you heard this on the Ugly Agent podcast for a free health and coaching consultation. Don't forget to ask about their generous referral program. Make money while you lose weight. That sounds like a great plan for 2019. Chris and Jennifer with The Perfect Spot For You are my personal photographers on all my listings. You can go to theperfectspotforyou.com and check out their work. I highly recommend these folks. For my entrepreneurial photographers out there, they do have a franchise option that you can look into. They'll get you set up, squared away, and get you on track in no time at all. They've even taken all the Ugly Agent podcast photos. Give them a call. Get something set up today. 913-201-2229. Tell them the Ugly Agent sent you. All right, thanks so much for that. We appreciate our sponsors. Again, be sure to share this with people. They're going to need to know this kind of information. So back to using my email. So here the thing is, we're back in. It's 2017. I'm doing this thing for 2018. In 2017. So I've got to look back through my emails to get receipts. A lot of times I don't print those. This is why I never delete anything out of my email, because it now has evidence of all the different things I did. I can actually look back in my email and try to figure out what I was doing if I'm not sure, because my email is going to tell me whatever I was working on at that time and kind of give me a lead into what I might have done. So if there's something I'm doing and I bought something or whatever, I get an email from somebody about needing something, now I'm able to go ahead and put it forward and say, you know what, I do remember that, and that's the company I used, and print out a receipt. The other thing is, and this was huge for me, I do a lot of Amazon shopping, right? I get on there and buy office supplies and materials and whatever else. And, if you go into your Amazon, you go into the purchases, you can go back as far as, they started, as far as you started with them, and it'll click out. So now I'm able to go back on Amazon and I'm printing all those receipts, right? So now I've got all that documentation. And I mean to tell you, I went through reams and reams of paper. It was unbelievable how many reams of paper I went through and how many file folders and paper clips and everything else to go through, because, I've got 15 and 16 and that's a lot of receipts. That's a lot of receipts. So while we're on receipts, I'm going to talk about Walmart receipts. One of the biggest problems that I had, right? Because I probably had 98% of all the receipts from all years, right? So that's pretty amazing in itself. I usually get them in a big file folder, and there's every now and then some would get lost or get ruined, and you just, what are you going to do? So to have that many, and she actually had mentioned that she was shocked, as was I, that I had most of those receipts. So, but Walmart receipts are troubling for the IRS, and here's why. Because you can buy everything at Walmart, right? So when you get business supplies, which is really convenient for me in our little town, if I just need a ream of paper, I run down there and I can pick it up and I buy a ream of paper or ink or whatever else, and I come home. But if I lose that receipt, they will not give you any credit at all for that receipt, because they're worried that you might be buying something else, right? So a lot of times, if you're going to buy stuff from Walmart, like, definitely buy it separate. Like, typically when I need printer ink, I'm going to buy both kinds, the black and the colored, at the same time. Keep the receipt. Now, the one thing I was able to do, if I had another receipt that had the same price on it, I'd say, hey, look, this is a ink receipt, and it's pretty obvious it's the same price. I mean, what's the chances of me going to Walmart and putting together all this stuff and have the tax add up to the right amount? So there are some things you can do, but if you get a Walmart receipt, my recommendation to you is to definitely take a picture, or they have a little scan thing. I think you can do it, but you want to keep those receipts. And by the way, if there's another receipt there and you're buying multiple things, here's where I messed up. And this is something that nobody else I've ever heard say. If you're buying things like I was buying printer paper and shop supplies, 2 receipts. You want 2 receipts on that. You want to separate those 2 purchases because it just makes it easier on your accounting, right? Because that's the big problem is everybody's got, what is worth what. And so we get hung up on that. And so that's one of the things I got dinged for was I wasn't putting him in the right spot. And because I didn't put him in the right spot, I didn't get credit for it. It only happened a handful of times, but I hate losing money on something stupid like that. So if you're getting stuff at Walmart, one's, office supplies and one's shop supplies, get 2 separate receipts. You're just way better off. So now here's the interesting thing, finding out what I did wrong. And I'm going to say this now, here it is 2019, right? And I'm actually happy that the IRS audited me. You know why? Because it showed me what I did wrong, and it showed me that I had been making some mistakes, and I probably could have kept more of my money. And what it really showed me is I probably should have been hanging out with my accountant a little bit more. I should have been spending a little more quality time with him to make sure that I was doing things right. Because what do? I package it up, send it to him. He does what he thinks is the best, and then he sends it off. We're not doing that anymore. I already know now what I messed up on, so I'm able to go in there and talk to him and say, look, here's what I need to get done. And here's how it works. The other thing is that was real funny is I filed some stuff under the wrong heading, right? So there was one of the headings I should have filed stuff on is goods. I think it's called goods bought or sold for. Anyway, there was one of these, and what it is anything I buy for manufacturing stuff should be in that box. Well, I wasn't putting it in there. I was putting it in something else. So now I know that I'm supposed to put that in there, and it completely changes the tax, the receipt on what I need for the IRS. Now, I'm not going to blame my accountant. It's all my fault. I did it. There's just no 2 ways about it. But the audit has helped me. So when I turned around to do my stuff for 2017 or 20, I knocked it out without a hitch. I knew exactly what I needed to do. I knew exactly what I did wrong. And lo and behold, I got a refund even on the money I'd already paid in. So what a deal. And we never usually got that before. So really the IRS made a giant mistake, I think, in auditing me, especially considering that I made hardly any money with the company, right? And I mean, we're writing off a lot of stuff, which don't do that, by the way. That's another lesson I learned for another video. But I wrote off a lot of stuff, and so I didn't make any money, and they didn't make any money, and so then they audit me, spend God knows how much money on this audit, because it went from, they started the process in September, and it went all the way through a whole year before they got paid. I mean, and thousands of man hours for who knows what to get almost nothing. So I'll go into that later, but the thing is, and this is the real fun part. So we get done with the 2014 and 2015, and I'm like, all right, we're done, Oh, and she goes, oh, no. We found some inconsistencies, and we want to see 2016's books now. So now I have to set up a whole nother, this is about February. I'm thinking we're done. It's going to be great. Nope. February, I get to go in and I get to start on all of this stuff with 2016. Now, here again, 2016 was a pretty easy year for me to put it together. Why? Because I'd already done 2 other years. And so I'm able to put this all together and get it right and know exactly what she's looking for. It still was a pain in the ass because I got all this other stuff going on during this, and I'm, not sleeping because, you've only got so many hours in the day, right? And time management's one of those things where I think the other thing is this audit really helped me with time management because I had to get all my other stuff done. I still had these other businesses to run, had real estate to sell, holsters to sell, and a family to take care of. Plus, I had my city hall duties. So I had to really focus on the time management to get all this stuff done. And so when you think about it, did it make me a better person? You bet. You bet it did. Now I'm very much more appreciative of what I have than I was before. And I also know how to manage it and take care of it and get the most out of it. So we go through 2016, right? So we're doing the audit. Same things are popping up, and that's why they do it, because if there was something that happened between those 2015 and 16 or 14 and 15, they're going to think you probably continued on a 16, which is, hey, that's the way it is. So now we're getting through that. We're all done. And it's like April. sometime in April. So I'm talking to her, and so they basically came up with this magic number that was like, it ended up averaging $3,000 a year that I owed the IRS, right? So that was including all of the fees and everything, right? So late fees and everything. She and I agreed that that's what we owe. I, sign a paper saying, hey, I'm going to send you $9,000 and something. But she says, don't do anything yet, because we're going to go ahead and we have to send this up the chain, and then they have to approve everything, and then you turn around and they'll contact you about paying. So I said goodbye to my new friend at the IRS and waited to hear from higher ups. So I think it was now this is somewhere in the beginning of April. So at the end of May, I get a certified letter from the IRS stating that, hey, look, here's the thing. Here's your bill, right? And so, by the way, because these other people, I don't know what happens there, but we signed an agreement saying that I owed them $9,000. These other people decided, nope, that agreement doesn't work, and now you owe us $12,000. How they added an extra, I couldn't tell, because I called them. And I said, look, I've got this thing where Kelly and I agreed, and they're like, nope, too bad, doesn't matter. You owe us $12,000. Now, I'm going to tell you, what do you do at that point? You're just SOL. And I'm telling you, I'll be honest with you. I thought I still figured I was getting a deal, right? Because that's only, $4,000 a year over the 3 years I was audited. And at one point they were talking about removing $30,000 a year, and somehow I'll have to come up with that money. I don't know how you come up with that money if you're a small business owner, but there's absolutely no recourse for you as a business owner or in a private individual either to say, no, I don't think that's right. All you can do is not pay it and then go to jail, or, well, they'll seize your assets and you probably won't go to jail, but it's not going to be fun. I think Wesley Snipes knows about it. But so anyway, the thing is, now I've got this person on the phone who's decided that, nope, it's not 9,000, it's 12,000. I said, who do I talk to about getting that changed? Well, no one, because see, they're faceless, nameless bureaucrats who just decide inadvertently that that's the number. So what are you going to do? So I'm on the phone with this person. And so it's like now time to set up a payment plan. And of course, they always are willing to let you pay everything up front right now. And I'm like, that can't happen. It's, I've got some money coming in. And what are we looking at? So they give you a payment schedule. They're like, hey, look here, if you can pay it off at these times. And here's the thing. This is the exciting part. They gave me 180 days. 180 days to come up with how it would, I could come up with the money and pay them off. And that was it. That's the maximum amount you can go. And I think I could pay about $1 billion over the course of 20 years if I let it drag out. I mean, it was ridiculous. The amount of money that they were willing to go, yeah, you can pay monthly, but it was a really high number and really high interest rate where that payday loan thing was looking really good. I'm not kidding. I could have saved money by going to get a payday loan to pay that thing off. So just really, you got to really run the numbers if you're getting this deal. And if I would recommend taking the 180-day option like I did and trying to figure out how you're going to collect that much money, whether you got to sell assets or whatever. Even that interest rate was ridiculous, but it was the best option at the time. So anyway, we arranged the payment plan and worked out a final payment due in September. So here we are a full year later. After all this other stuff, we've gone how many people when they're going to get paid in a year. And I'm thinking, man, they worked this whole year for $12,000. I wish I was getting paid by government. So now we're at the final stages and I'm getting paid, right? So I'm going to pay them. And here's the thing. We had a date. There was never, after I agreed to this payment schedule, they never sent anything else out, which is unusual because the IRS loves to send you stuff all the time when you're in this situation. They did send out 3 different envelopes, one for each year, but there was nothing about the payment schedule, nothing about who to contact and how to pay. They just basically told you to go to irs.gov and sign up and pay there. So I'm finally ready to make the payments, and so I've got to pay. There's not like a lump sum amount on this thing. You got to set up an account, which is crazy, and they want to make sure that they know It's you, right? So you got to have a credit card. They want or a loan, a house loan or a car loan or whatever. So you'll love this. I go to use my car loan because I'm like on the phone with the bank anyway. I'm like, hey, what's my loan number on the bank? On this, so I can use this. I'm telling them about the IRS and all that. And they're like, oh, here it is. Here's the loan number. So I go punch that in to the IRS's website, and it says, you don't have a loan like that. And I'm on the phone with the bank when I'm doing it. And I go, what was that number again? And they're like, here it is. Here's the account number. And I punch it in again. And they're like, nope, the IRS says that loan, that account or number does not exist. And I quickly told the bank, hey, look, I'm stopping payments on this thing because this loan does not exist. They got a pretty big kick out of that. But the idea was, I had my credit card and I was able to finally get logged in using the credit card. I don't know what the deal was, but so now here's the real crazy thing. You get this, it says it's a certain amount broken down by year, right? So I have, it averaged $12,000. I got no problem telling you that. It's what it is. And I got a deal. But it's broken down by the individual year. It's not just hey, look, Rich, you owe this amount, right? So, so I go to pay, and I got to link up my bank account and do all that stuff. And so I make the first payment, right? Everything's good. I'm like, whew, that's a load off, right? So go in, make the next payment. It says, yep, thanks, good. And, of course, there's notices all over this thing that says, if you don't pay, you're going to get so much a fine and added to every day. And, I mean, they're serious. They're going to add on a ridiculous amount of money every day you don't pay. So now I'm like, of course, I waited until, like, the last day to pay because, well, I want to make sure that I'm paying the interest anyway, right? Might as well wait till the last day. So I go to pay for the third year for 2016 and go in, punch in all my stuff, and it says, you can't pay anymore. And I'm like, what? And it says, you have already made 2 payments today. You have to wait 48 hours. I think it was 24 or 48 hours to make another payment. And it says, oh, by the way, even if you've paid and you still owe more and you're paying, your payment is going to be considered late if you pay after. So they won't take my money and they're still going to charge me interest because I can't pay anymore. Now, they did say I could go and pay with a credit card another way, but then I had to pay like some ridiculous surcharge, which was more than the interest they were charging just so I could pay it that day. And I was like, what? Who engineered this system? And by the way, who randomly goes and pays for other people's IRS debts? I would like to know. Nobody did that for me. I'd love for somebody to fake being me, log in, create a password, and pay for me because that's what they're really worried about. Who in the hell cares as long as they're getting paid? But the idea that I'm not going to be able to pay the bill was only the government could make you not be able to pay and be upset that you're not going to pay. So that was a whole big rigmarole. I had to wait. I think I ended up having to wait 24 hours, and I tried to do it the next morning, right? I tried to sneak in, and it says, no, you've already paid. So then I go the next evening, and I'm like, I think I did it late at night the night before, too. So I had to stay up late again to pay, and lo and behold, I go to pay, and their system's down. They could not accept payment. And I'm just like, what in the hell is going on? And they put a nice note up, though. Even though we cannot accept a payment right now, you're still getting dinged because you didn't pay your deal on time. And I'm thinking, no grace period, no nothing, right? So I mean, I'm thinking this is classic government in action right here. So I finally, I think it's the third day, and I'm trying to make my final payment, right? So it comes out and says, here's your estimated, and by the way, that's all they say, estimated total. They cannot tell you exactly what you owe them, which is mind-boggling to me. If you need to pay more, you will be assessed a fee every day until you get it paid off in full. So, okay, how do you know if they don't know, right? But that doesn't matter in their world. So I pay the balance shown, right? And so I wait 2 or 3 days. Of course, all I can imagine is I'm racking up a bill because it's $3 short. It turns into $10. Now it's $100, and I'm still paying, and I don't know it, and nobody sends me anything, and all of a sudden I owe another $1,000. I can't sleep at night. So I'm like, I'm gonna just call. So I get the 800 number for the IRS, and I call up just to confirm that I am actually paid up in full, because I just want to know, right? I just want to know exactly what's going on. And so here's what's really funny. I'm on hold for 2 hours. 2 hours waiting. And it's like, you can go to irs.gov and do this and do this. Well, it's telling you all this, but it can't. It's ironic because irs.gov could not answer my question. They could not tell me if I still owed money or not, right? So, everything the prompter's telling is not true. So I'm sitting there, and I'm just like walking through a Walmart. I'm driving around. I'm trying to do it and make sure that I don't lose cell phone signal, but I can't go home because I don't want to. If I'm there and something happens, I get disconnected or whatever. So I'm just on hold, and I finally get a person. Nice lady. And I said, boy, I've been holding for 2 hours. And she's like, yeah, it's usually like that. And I said, I just have a quick question. I paid my bill. Here's my social security number. Here's everything. Do I owe you any more money? Can I just make sure that, like, I can give you extra, or is there any way to know? I just need to know what is the deal, right? So they end up telling me, this lady, nice lady. I mean, I feel bad for her because she's got this a terrible job. After being on hold for 2 hours, she cannot tell me whether I owe them money or not. It's the most bizarre thing ever. She's like, sorry, I can't tell you. They do all that stuff somewhere else. We have no idea. We can't see it. And you'll just have to wait to get a letter in the mail. Or they'll take any extra out of a tax return you might get later on. And I'm like, well, it could be gone by the time. She's like, yep, well, just you can keep checking back on the website or whatever else. And so it took, I want to say, 4 weeks. And I finally got a letter from the IRS saying that I had overpaid by $1.12, and they were just going to put that credit on with my next year's tax return and give it back to me. Which I was like, at this point, I'm like, you can keep it. I don't care. Right. So, but this is, what you're dealing with. So it is stressful. It can be. I'm going to tell you just to remember what Gary said. They just want a story. Try to get it, and where you are in the best situation to win against people who have really no power, and you are at their whim, and they can do just about whatever they want to you. So my recommendation to you would be to always be cordial, never be a jerk, because if you think you're going to be a jerk, they're going to show you a bigger one, and you don't want to be messing with that. So I'd like to hear if you guys have any feedback on any experiences you've had with the IRS. Put them in the comments or send me a message or whatever. I'd love to. And by the way, go to the uglyagentpodcast.com or join our Facebook page. I'd love to hear from you there, or put a comment in the YouTube channel. So I'd like to hear from you guys and your experience with the IRS. I think, and be sure to like, share, subscribe, click the bell notifications, all this stuff. But make sure that this is one of those things that you might, if you have friends or family who are business owners, you might want to send them over and have them spend 45, 50 minutes listening to this and kind of get an idea, so that if they are ever audited, they at least, or if maybe they're in the process, they got the letter and they need to know what's going to happen, what it's going to look like. Definitely people need to know how to prepare and what it's really going to be like. The IRS has a video, and I'm telling you, it wasn't anything like what I did. So what happened to me. So, and of course, everybody's mileage may vary, but that was my experience right here in Kansas City. So anyway, I look forward to seeing some comments from you guys. And as always, I am here to serve you. So thank you so much for tuning in today, and have a great day.